In this video, we want to consider the organization of small business. The notes in the video are broadly based on the work of Bridge and O'Neill, 2009, a reference that we've met in other videos on the course. They look at it as an issue of top-down decision making, organization structure, control, a lack of objectivity. And what we're going to do in the video is to look at each one of these in slightly more detail. So we're just going to look at organization of small business in the context of the top-down discussion, decision making, and so on. So let's start with the top-down. The business owner is the main person of authority and holds all control of the business. So it's the first point to make, and it's an important point, that the owner is in control. The owner is in complete control. It's not shared, generally speaking, with others. Small businesses may be owned by one person, set up by that person, owned and managed by that same person. This approach is effective if the business is stable and the business owner or the entrepreneur is able to motivate employees through their vision, or his or her vision, and ambitions. So it's important that the owner, if the owner has become the manager, which is generally the case with particularly very small businesses, but when the business has to take on employees, the employees will have a different agenda. The employees will want good salary, good working conditions, security of employment, and the employees need motivation, and they need to be dealt with in the context of what they require. They need to be reassured that it is a good job and it's worth doing, and the entrepreneur wants to have them commit to the business. So the entrepreneur must have additional skills. It's not just a question of setting up the business and coming up with the idea, but there must be also managerial skills. And these managerial skills will enable the entrepreneur to deal with business issues as and when they arise. However, most effective ideas come from employees. They are in touch with new technologies and the economic and social developments in the country. So it's important that the owner of a small business is flexible and understands that that he or she may not have a monopoly of insight into the business. The fact that the owner has claim over the business doesn't mean that the owner's decisions will be invariably correct, and that listening to others and listening to employees or other interested parties may be a very fruitful way to go about business. It may be a worthwhile way, because criticisms and comments are to be valued, are to be taken on board and to be thought about, analysed, considered, and perhaps acted upon. Decision making. Well, decision making in a small business is more informal than large businesses or large organisations. In a small business, the decision making is normally made by one person, the person who owns the business, or if it's a small partnership, by the various partners who get together and make a decision. Essentially, it's typified by a lack of bureaucracy. There is not much bureaucracy involved in the decision-making process. An issue arises, they discuss it, and a decision can be quickly derived. The decision can also be implemented quite fast as well, because there is no real obstacle to them. There's nothing to say they can't. Providing the resources are available, they can implement their decisions quite quickly. Decision making is a simple process: setting of objectives, making forecasts, evaluating the external environment, and contingency planning. But it is quite a simple process because of the lack of consultation. But that also could be, of course, its weakness compared to bigger companies. Bigger companies have to reflect on decisions, they have to consult, they have to have meetings, everything has to be analysed and thought about. Whereas in a small business, it appears that the business is more flexible and more agile because it's able to make quicker decisions. But it doesn't necessarily mean the decisions are high quality. The decisions may be faulty in some way. In larger organizations, there is a complex organizational structure with many lines of communication and chains of command, and decision making is a lengthy process. Well, that's seen as a bad thing because it takes so long to make a decision. On the other hand, as I just said earlier, it could also be seen as a good thing because when the decisions are made, they tend to be good quality decisions where all eventualities have been thought about and weighed and considered. So there is a tension as to whether the lack of bureaucracy in small business gives the small business an advantage as compared to making good decisions. So there's a two-sided coin there that needs to be considered. Organization structure. Well, small business structures tend to be simple with shorter hierarchical organizational structure. In a small business, it's easy to go from the shop floor to the owner. It might be just one step. It may be just the owner and some people making the product and selling it. So in that case, there is no middle management. As the organization gets bigger, there may be a middle management. But again, it's not a long chain of command. It's not a long distance, a big distance from the shop floor to the owner. So that means there is less bureaucracy. It's easy to consult with the owner, but that has to be again compared with the advantages of having specialists involved at different stages in production, and the specialists reporting to perhaps a senior manager who reports to the owner. But it's generally speaking seen as a good thing that it is not bureaucratic. There tend to be few employees, making communications between departments an easier task. There are fewer people in the organisation, so communications is facilitated. It's easy to direct messages and to ask questions and issue commands. It's very easy because there are so few people involved. If it was a large organisation, the information has to be disseminated throughout the organisation, and there have to be checks perhaps to see whether everyone received it, and it's, as I said, it's more bureaucratic and it's more time consuming with larger organisations. The structure is simple and allows for flexible working practices. Small organisations can accommodate different working practices, which may mean it's able to get a better workforce and a more committed workforce. Thinking here particularly of female workers who may have children who have to attend school, and they can't perhaps go to work before the school starts. They have to go drop the children at school and go to work then. Well, small businesses may be able to accommodate that. Well, that in turn will build up a loyalty with those employees. So it's a very simple structure, and it may allow for some flexibility, which is to be welcomed within the workforce, and may lead to more motivation and more loyalty to the business. Control. Well, all control is taken by one person, the owner. There are no formal or recognized boundaries or hierarchical structures which determine authority and power. In large organizations, there is a hierarchy and there are boundaries. Different departments have their own boundaries. So the production manager will be in charge of production. He or she is not in charge also of marketing, the chances are. So the marketing section will be separate, and production will be separate, and distribution will be separate, and accounts will be separate. So there are boundaries, but with small businesses there don't seem to be that many boundaries. The owner is expected to multitask. The owner is expected to manage the business and display some knowledge of all of the various functional areas we find in larger businesses. So the owner would be expected to know something about marketing and know something about production and know something about distribution and accounts and make sure that he or she is aware of the cash flow situation. And so there are no hierarchical boundaries, but one person is in control of everything. Now, again, that means less bureaucracy, but it also is dangerous because one person can't be an expert on everything, and the potential is there for mistakes. Larger organizations go through a complex stream of channels and commands and hierarchical structure to set up formal control and management authority. So larger organizations, in contrast to the small businesses we're talking about here, large organizations will have grown and developed these various departments. And the departments, some of them can almost seem autonomous. They are working almost as companies within a company, businesses within a business. So larger organizations are much more complex. Smaller organizations tend to have a very simple organizational structure. Control tends to be direct supervision of employees. Smaller organizations do not delve into performance management training and management programs. They don't have the resources to do so or the time. So they tend to get involved with direct supervision, making sure that the employees know what they're doing, they can do the particular tasks, and then they're left to do it, and the owner manager will move on to something else. So the tasks will be demonstrated, and then perhaps the owner manager will move on to doing something else within the organization. But there are no elaborate training programs in small businesses, generally speaking. There are no development programs. There may not be a HR department to deliver them. The business is too small. Lack of objectivity. Well, smaller businesses lack objectivity. This is a weakness and makes small organizations more vulnerable to industry and competitors. They're more vulnerable because the owner thinks that he or she knows what the right thing to do is. The owner thinks they know what the right course of action is. Whereas in a larger organization, that would have to be debated, discussed, all of the downsides considered, all of the consequences considered, and then the decision will be made. Whereas in a small business, the owner may be lured into making hasty decisions, and it will be his or her opinion. It may not be based on objectivity. Smaller businesses should employ staff from various skilled backgrounds rather than from local communities. That should be employ, not employee in the sentence. My apologies for that. Small businesses should employ staff from various skilled backgrounds. Well, that's a possible solution to the problems of small business. They should really look towards employing people with different aptitudes and different backgrounds, so that the training is brought into the business. They don't have to deliver the training. They have recruited people with those skills right from the start. They need to recruit employees that are talented and show innovation. But of course, those employees will be more expensive. The wage bill will be higher in that case. But that may be the only solution to the lack of training within the organization and the lack of programs in support of the employees that would be found in larger organizations. Now, the source for what I've been using here is the Bridge and O'Neill book. It's one that we've quoted elsewhere in other videos on this topic, so quite a useful text. But that's all we're going to deal with here, so let's leave it at that and say thank you for watching.